Hola y buenos días. Yo soy el señor Morris. Soy el maestro de español. ¿Cómo están ustedes? Today we'll have a number dictation activity. We'll go over some of the stuff that we went over earlier in the unit, and we'll talk about some more things that come to us from plants. But before we get started, let's sing our greeting song. Canten conmigo. Hola, hola, buenos días, bienvenidos, ¿cómo están? Todos juntos ya estamos listos para aprender. Muy bien cantado. Now, as I said, the first thing that we'll be doing today is a number dictation activity. So everyone, please take out a piece of paper and a writing utensil. And you can use scratch paper, you can use your Spanish notebooks, whatever you like. Ahora, escriban estos números. Okay, we'll start off with a pretty easy one. Dos. Dos. Probably pretty familiar with that. Did you write down this number? Dos. Did you get that? Sure. Let's try one that's a little bit harder then. How about this one? 22. 22. 22. Did you get that? Just a little bit harder. Did you get 22? 22. Okay. A little bit more difficult now. How about this one? 222. 222. Did you get this? Or is it 222? 222. How about this one then? 2222. 2222. Did you get that one? How about this? Just start out. There it is. 2000. See, we have 2222. All right. Very good. Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and start with what we talked about during our first class of this unit as we answer this question. ¿Cuáles son las partes de la planta? Las partes de la planta. Well, let's have a look at this right now. Okay, this whole thing here, what is the whole thing called? And you should know this, it's a cognate. La planta. Es la planta. And if you want to use your Spanish notebooks while we're doing this, that's fine with me. It's okay with your teacher. This part of the planta, esta parte, ¿cómo se dice? What is it called? La flor. La flor. Okay? And how about these things? ¿Cómo se dice esta parte de la planta? Again, it's a cognate, so that should help. Son los pétalos. Los pétalos. And you see the accent there. Los pétalos. And then right there in the center, you see that? Do you remember what grows in there? ¿Cómo se dice esta parte de la planta? Remember what those are called? Las semillas. Las semillas. All right. Well, how about these things? And this should be pretty familiar to you by now, I hope. Una, dos, tres. Las hojas. Las hojas. Very good. And this part, the stem or the stalk. En español, ¿cómo se dice? Es el tallo. El tallo. And finally, this part that's down here, underground. Do you remember what that's called? This part? Tell your teacher. Teachers, did they say la raíz? La raíz. Muy bien. Now all of those things should probably be starting to look pretty familiar to you. You should be able to recognize them. Okay? Tell you what, please take a moment to review the parts of the plant again with this video. Ahora, presten atención y repitan todos. Parts of the plant. Las partes de la planta. ¿Cuáles son las partes de la planta? Esta es la semilla de la planta. Esta es la raíz de la planta. Este es el tallo de la planta. Esta es la hoja de la planta. Esta es la planta. Esta es la flor de la planta. Este es el pétalo de la planta. Esta es la semilla de la planta. Muy bien. Now, last class, we started to talk about things other than foods that we get from plants. Tell you what, let's go ahead and look at those again right now. Remember this one we talked about? And this is the one that they take the fibers from and they'll make clothes. In English, it's cotton. Y en español es algodón. Can you say that? Algodón. Muy bien. The next thing that we talked about was this. And this is pretty much a cognate. That makes it pretty easy. Sometimes if you get sick, they have certain things that are made from plants that'll help you get better. Son medicinas. Okay, can you say that? Medicina. Medicina. And now another thing that we get from plants that we use for a lot of different things is this. Okay, and this comes from trees, right? Madera. Repitan todos. Madera. Now the other one that we get from plants that's very important, right? They take in carbon dioxide, dióxido de carbono, and they put out oxygen or oxígeno. Repitan todos. Oxígeno. And hopefully you have these in your notebooks already. If you don't, you might want to jot them down. Here's something that you use to flavor your foods with. Spices, en español son especias. Repitan. Especias. That's right. And here we see canela, and that's cinnamon. Anise, that's anise. And here, oh, you can see it kind of pimienta, pepper. All of those come from plants, don't they? We looked at this when we talked about if you drive around on tires, a lot of times the rubber from tires comes from trees, from rubber plants, and that's called caucho. Repitan todos. Caucho. And the last thing, you guys are probably pretty familiar with this. Remember we measured this when we were talking about measuring, and that is chicle. Chicle. All right. Pero hay más, right? There are other things. Madera is used to make many things that we use every day. Who can think of some of the things that are made out of wood? Raise your hand. Tell your teacher some of the things that are made out of wood. I'm sure you guys can come up with quite a few. Here are some of the things that I brought today that are made from wood or plants. Oh, here you go. Got a little rocking chair and a little table. Son muebles. Go ahead and jot this down in your notebook. Muebles. And what would we call these in English? Furniture. That's right. Muebles. That's right. And those are made from madera, or wood. Another thing that you'll see a lot of times made from wood are these. And this is one that I made. Yeah, oh, look at how nice. What is this? It's a little house made out of wood. Houses are made of wood. Y en español son casas. Casas. Okay, very good. And jot that one down. You may have even heard that word before. Casa. Yeah, it's pretty common. Another thing that you'll find made from wood a lot of times are these. Right? And this is the little game that you try to throw the ball and make it land in the cup. I got this one down in Mexico. But these are toys. Toys are made from wood a lot of times. Y en español son juguetes. Can you say that? Juguetes. You hear how the J is pronounced kind of like an H. Juguetes. Now, another thing that comes from wood that I'm sure you guys use a lot of is this right here. And we use this every day in school. Our newspapers come on this. Yeah, it's paper. Y en español es papel. Papel. That should be pretty easy to remember. And there's one more thing that I'm sure that you guys use almost every day in your school. I know I like to use this a lot. And you probably know this word because I say it all the time when I tell you that we're going to do a dictation activity. Es un lápiz. Lápiz. You've heard me say that before, haven't you? Well, I'll tell you what, in addition to the things that plants give us, they give us a lot of ideas. In English, we have a lot of poems and songs about plants and trees. For example, have you ever heard this one? I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. Have you heard that? Or, under the spreading chestnut tree, the village smithy stands. Have you heard those? Sure. Well, just as in English, there are a number of poems in Spanish about plants and plant products. And I'd like to teach you one right now. It's called Rima de la Manzana. Now, can anyone guess what rima means? Rima? It looks kind of like rhyme. De la manzana. So it's the rhyme of the manzana, apple. Okay. This is how it goes. La manzana se pasea. Now you know that la manzana means the apple. Se pasea means it is passed. So the apple is passed de la sala al comedor. De la sala means from the room, like a living room or a room, al comedor, into the eating room. It comes from comer. So the apple is passed from the room into the eating room. No me pinches con cuchillo. And this is the apple talking now. It says, oh, don't stick me with a knife. It says, píncheme con tenedor. Stick me with a fork. Okay? Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and say it all together now, and I'd like to hear everyone saying it with me. Again, the words are in the student resource notebook, in the teacher's guide, or you'll see them on the screen right now. Todos juntos. La manzana se pasea de la sala al comedor. No me pinches con cuchillo, píncheme con tenedor. All right. Well, I tell you what, this one has a real rhythm to it, a real beat. And you know what I always like to do when I get poems and songs like this? I like to jump rope. So, now after last time, a lot of people said, "Oh, Senor Maurice, you'll never be able to jump rope to this poem." Well, I'm just going to prove them wrong, and I'd like you guys to help me out by saying the poem with me. Let's see if I can do it. You ready? Let's go. La manzana. Oh, that wasn't fair. Oh, I see the problem. There. Here we go. Okay. La manzana se pasea de la sala al comedor. No me pinches con cuchillo, píncheme con tenedor. Ah, well, you know what? It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's fun to know and to say anyway. Tell you what, let's go ahead now and look at our activity sheet for the day. Now, it's not so much a sheet to be completed as it is a game. It's called Juegos de Cartas. Here's what it looks like. Now, we've seen these kind of before, and each set has 3 cards. So you'll see, you'll have one card that only has the word. You'll have one card that has the word and the pictures. You'll have another card that has only the pictures. Now you can start off by trying to match up the 3. That way you'll know that las casas look like these. Right, houses. You can just match those up so that you'll be familiar with the vocabulary. If you want to, you can play fish. So that if you have this card, you can ask somebody else, "Oh, do you have las casas?" And then if they have them, they'll have to give them to you. If you get a set of 3, then you get to keep them. Now, once you get really good, you can take out the middle card, and that way we'll know that you know what the words mean when you're playing. Now, you can play a lot of games. You can play fish. You can play memoria. That's the one where you turn them over and you try to match them by turning them over one at a time. Okay? And I bet that you guys can come up with a lot of games that you can make out of the cards yourself. And that's fine. I think as long as you're using them and going over the vocabulary, that's the most important thing. Today, we learned about some more things that we use that are made of plants. Now, next class, we'll look at the various habitats where plants live and what types of plants live in each. You might want to begin by looking around where you live and see what kind of habitat you can find. Are they dry? Are they wet? Do you have big trees, little trees? You see what you have around where you live. Next class, we'll also be reading a book, okay? So be sure to be here for that. Pero ¿saben qué? Ya es hora de despedirnos. For our goodbye song today, let's sing Cielito Lindo, okay? And I want to hear everybody singing when we come to the ay, 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 ay part. Canten conmigo. De la Sierra Morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando. Un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. Help me out now. Ay, 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 ay. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones. You guys keep practicing what we're doing here in class. You practice in your classes too. And I'll see you next class. Until then, adios y hasta luego. Ay, ay.